Hello and welcome to DC Trainings. This is Dr. Scott Sawyer. We are in Module 3, Week 7, which is Insurance Forms, and today is July 2nd, 2015. I want to welcome everyone to today's call, and I have a very special announcement today because we have a special guest, and as many of you I'm sure are aware, on the because I sent it out in an email, but we have a very special guest speaker today. And it fits perfectly, our topic this week fits perfectly with his information because what better time to talk about insurance forms than to pair it up at this particular time this year with ICD-10. So as I said, many of you saw this in our email broadcast that went out this week letting you know, but we have a very special guest to talk about ICD-10 and tie that into our insurance forms. And now, how does this apply to the whole model of DC trainings? That's the first thing I want to say. It just poses a question for today, because when you have a busy practice, and I know we're all quote unquote busy, but when you have a busy practice, meaning that there's a lot of people coming in, getting adjusted, having their subluxations corrected, having life-changing miracles. I just saw, I love to share stories with you. I just saw a young girl this morning, and this girl has been through such a terrible road with okay, sorry, I'm getting notes from people already filling in ICD-10, ICD-10. All right, great, it's here. But anyways, I had this girl come in and she was so skeptical because she's been down such a tough road. She's been to medical doctors, she's been to on medications, and she's had these migraine headaches that have been part of her life for as long as she can remember. It's been terrible. And the first few times I saw her, she's been coming in with her mom, but she was very skeptical. She never smiled. She had lost hope. And think about that. I mean, that's the tragedy of having a life where you're subluxated, is that you lose hope in life. It's terrible. Well, my point of this, telling you this story, is that she came in today and it was the first time I've seen her smile. And this was like her fourth or fifth adjustment, but she came in and she was smiling. And her mom was so excited that after, and I told her, I said, Iris, you're smiling this morning. And she said, yeah, I actually slept last night. And this girl's like 13 or 14 years old, and she's telling me this. I mean, it gives me goosebumps just talking about it. And so I adjusted her, and I told her how proud I was of her, and her commitment to this is going to make a life-changing experience for her that's literally going to last her for the rest of her life. And I'm just so excited about it. And she said, thank you, Dr. Sawyer. And then she walked up front, and her mom was starting to walk up front with her. And then she pulled me aside. She said, Iris, go ahead and go. I'll meet you up front. She pulled me aside and she said, Dr. Sawyer, I just want to tell you, this is the first time that Iris has smiled in years. And we are just elated. We are so excited. We've never felt her get this excited, and she actually has hope, and we just want to thank you. And that right there is why I do what I do. It's why you do what you do. It's the life-changing miracles that chiropractic provides when you give somebody an adjustment and it turns their innate healing power on so they can reach their fullest health capacity. And that's why we do this. Now, why does that tie into our topic this week? You're probably wondering, why is he going off on this tangent? Well, the reason why that wasn't a tangent is because when a patient comes into your office, they are looking for the results that Iris saw. What they're not looking for is getting hung up on a bunch of insurance forms, or hung up on paperwork, or hung up on the kinks of a non-efficient running practice. They're looking to see miracles, and they're looking for a life-changing experience. And if you have everything in order in your practice, if your paperwork is dialed in, your staff are well-trained, you know what you're doing, and everything's organized, it creates this perfect entrance to a life-changing experience. And that's what I teach you with DC trainings, is to make sure that all this stuff is organized, everything's in place, so that when the patient walks in, they get nothing but the best opportunity to reach their optimum health. And they walk in the front door, that's point A, and point B is their life-changing experience, and they never look back. And that's why this is so important. So I don't want to waste any more time. I'm very excited. I'm going to just test our lines just to make sure that we've got good communication. So let's see, where did you go? Oh, Dr. Johnson. I was going to say hello to Dr. Johnson. Dr. Norquita, are you there? Hello, Dr.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi,
How are
okay,
you?
great. I'm doing great. Thank you. Welcome to the call. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, I'm going to jump right off, but I will come back to you after the next little section here, but stay tuned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so without any further hesitation, I want to welcome to our group today Dr. John Davila. He's a graduate of Palmer Davenport, 1994. He's an expert on practice compliance. He specializes in practice profitability, and best of all, he is my new guru for ICD-10. I know I've been getting so many calls from you about, I'm nervous about ICD-10, what do I do, what do I do? And I told you I would have an answer and I would have it ready for you. And with us today is Dr. John Davila. Welcome to the call.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome, and we're so glad to have you.
I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
So let me switch over to your screen, and we'll take it away. Here we go. There, perfect. Okay, and I think we are good to go. I'm looking right at your screen. There we go.
There you go. All right. So let's do something first real quick. I just want to explain to somebody before I go any further that I want everyone to relax. Just relax. It's okay. You're doing 80% of the work now. If you're doing Scott's initial information request and their history, you're going to do most of what's required as far as producing the documentation you need from the history component. I'll talk about that for a few seconds. But just everyone relax, because if you think about it, this is the funny part. Where were you guys on December 31st, 1999? And don't tell me you were with Prince partying like it's 1999. That's not the point. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, I was partying. Like, I remember I actually wore a tuxedo tonight, expecting the world to disintegrate. When in reality, all we were left was these stupid books. ICD-10, guys, is no different. ICD-10 has been so overblown, so oversold. Everyone's so worried about anything. It is craziness. It is actually crazy. So I want you just to all relax. I have good news for you, then I have really good news for you, then I have excellent news for you. Because if you think about it, we all have to find a place to start. And the way you start from the very beginning is understanding that your office is the place where you make your money. Okay? So what I want to do today is I want to explain to you that as we go to create our transition from ICD-9 to 10, or if I say 9 to 10, you know what I mean. The point is that we have to understand the way our practice works first. So if it's subluxation based, like Scott talked about and the way he teaches, then we have to understand that we need to be able to create the image to our patients the same way, the same image that they have today, even though it may be October 1st. Now, what I mean is this. If I were standing by the side of a lake and looking at this swan, right, and they're baiting his little swans with them over there, like floating across the water, what would be the word I would use to describe them? Okay. Now, that's the same word that your patient should use to describe exactly what your office looks like to them. It should be the reason why they come in. It should be simple. It should be no problem at all. It's very, very easy stuff for a patient to come in and say, oh yeah, this is perfect. This is no big deal. This is easy. I like coming here. It's easy to stay, pay, refer, all the different stuff. If they use the term in your office when they see you in interaction with you, it would be graceful. That's the interaction. That's what someone would say if they saw a swan float across the water. Now, I don't want to change that. But what people need to realize is that that swan really, really paddles like you know what beneath the surface. So I want to teach you today the importance between paddling and looking graceful. Okay, I don't want to change the way you interact with patients. The way Scott teaches you to deal with that, the reason why you're successful is because people see that interaction and they love it and they go ahead and they want more of it. They don't realize the way you have to code and bill and document underneath the surface. They have no idea what it takes. So the last thing you want to do is create this process in addition to what you're doing that slows you down or ruins the way you practice. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do that, okay? So the first thing we need to do in order to get this accomplished is to understand that our treatment plans and our care plans are a three-legged stool, okay? And we need to support the care plan. Everyone thinks it's the coding, but it's not. It is not the coding at all. You see, this is your care plan. This is what you sell somebody. This is what the patient needs, okay, to get from dis-ease to ideal functional wellness, as Strang puts it, okay? Now, when we look at this, there's actually 3 components to this that we need to make sure that we understand on how to paddle. Not how to be able to educate a patient, but how to paddle so the state boards leave us alone, okay? The first one is we need to figure out for ourselves very first, what is medical necessity? We need to make sure we understand medical necessity. And how much, once we understand medical necessity, we'll understand how many visits of a care plan are active care versus wellness care. So in order to do that, we need to know our coding, of our CPT coding to start with, okay? Then from there, we're going to need to know exactly what documentation we need to have. Now, why is this? We need to know this because ICD-10 is not about the billing codes. You've been sold a lie. You've been told from the very beginning, oh, you got to buy this service and this service for this code and this code and this code. Bullpucky. It's not true. Don't buy it. Don't buy that access. Don't buy access to these websites that are useless, okay? And the reason why I say they're useless is because it's not about the codes. It's not about the billing codes. It's about the CPT codes you use. It's about the medical necessity. It's about proving the documentation to put it all together. Why? It's simple. Think about it. Couldn't I get a monkey to pick the ICD-10 codes? Couldn't I just pick them out of a book? Can I just look at the book and go, yep, that's 7 digits, 7 characters, I'm going to use that one? Sure you can. But what's the difference? Why is that not what's so hard? Well, it's not that that's hard. You see, the issue that we have to remember is this. ICD-10 is the same as algebra in high school. Now, I don't know if everyone wants to go back to algebra, but if we were back to high school for that matter, but if we think about it, the whole point of this is that if we took an algebra test in high school, if we looked at the question and knew the answer and just wrote down the answer and didn't show our work, how much credit did we get? 0. That's the reason why the answer of just what code am I going to bill is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The whole entire point of this whole situation has nothing to do with the codes. It's whether or not you prove your work. Are you doing all the work? So when it comes down to this, it's all about algebra. You have to make sure that when you do this, you show all of these. You need to show all of these. Make sure these are all correct because the requirements are changing. You just can't stay with what you were doing before. So you may say, well, John, this doesn't make any sense. How come I have to do this in the first place? I don't want to do this. Well, I understand, but let's look at the whole idea of what needs to be done. Okay, the first one is we need to understand why. So if you don't want to do it, that's cool, I understand, but we need to know why because it's going to happen regardless. I want you to know how ICD-9 and 10 are similar, what's medical necessity, documentation required, a little bit of ICD-10, and how you produce the right codes. Now I'm going to go through this really, really quick today, but I need to know, Scott, we have a date set in October for us to come out and actually go through this in California with you guys. So what I want you to know is as we go through this, you need to understand the reason why the codes are not staying the same. And it has everything to do with that they're old, they're not specific enough, and technology has moved on. So if I were to ask somebody, you know, where were you in 1988? What were you doing? What kind of cell phone did you have in 1988? That one. And believe it or not, that's when the last time we changed diagnosis codes was. In 1988. We were using a brick as a phone. Okay? Now, the reason why they're changing this around is because it's going to save the government millions when it comes down to all of this quicker, be able to find the code and move faster and do all these different things, okay? So all these different codes that we're going to come up with, okay, yeah, they're there. It's no big deal. But here's the thing that's interesting, okay? The codes themselves, they're not broken down to severity. They're not broken down into all these different levels of all these different things. Everyone was told about all these different issues. Listen to this statistic. You ready? Everyone's all worried about the number of codes, and yeah, I'll show you in a few seconds. It goes from 14,000 to to probably 200 billion codes, whatever it is. 37% of all the codes are a straight one-to-one swap, and then the number of ICD-9 codes that are 1 to 2 or 2 to 1s, another 18%, which means almost 50 or just over 50% of all the codes or either one code or going to turn from one code to 2 codes. How hard is that? So all these codes, all are listed as severity. It's no big deal. So when we look at it, all the people that are out there trying to, to scare you into buying something, it's not about the codes. Okay? What it is all about is the fact that they're similar, but they're not the same. They're not the same, but they're kind of similar. Okay, so when we look at, yes, the numbers are crazy. Okay, ICD-9 is 15,000, ICD-10 70,000, but you know what? 99.98% of them don't even apply to us. Yes, there is a whole idea when it comes down to, is there a, the musculoskeletal component? Yeah. Are there some differences between 9 and 10? Yeah, there's 3 major differences. But you know what, though? It's not that hard. It is just understanding that now there's one thing, which is one's a letter. So ICD-9 was all numbers. ICD-10 is alphanumeric. Simple stuff. No big deal. See, you go from a 739.1 to M99.01. Easy. So now we have a letter in there instead of just all numbers. That's one change. Big deal. We can figure that out. Okay. How are they different? Also, now there's also something called a placeholder. So you see these X's right here. These X's mean that they're holding a place for expansion of the code later. The book tells you exactly what to do. It's no big deal. Okay. Once again, we just know in some cases that we're going to require 7 characters, as it says here, 7 numbers, characters. And then from there, the next thing is, when we have those, future expansion, 7th character, they're all there. It's all to handle this ADRS, which I'll get to in a second. But the important thing next is that there, in this situation, there is laterality versus ICD-9 where there was none. Now, this is important because I want you to go ahead and remember, in this situation, you see this little thing right here, it says NOS? This is big for you. This is big because you have to understand the way it works in the real world, and I mean real world outside of chiropractic, is that doctors document and coders code. So if I told you that NOS would be a dead giveaway that the doctor didn't write down that there was sciatica on the left or right, that someone just wrote down, hey, listen, I just wrote down the patient has sciatica. If that's the case, cool, no problem. Doctor wrote down the patient has sciatica. The coder, if the doctor didn't write down left or right, the coder would look at this and go, okay, well, I can't pick left or right. I can only pick NOS. Now, you don't want to use the least specific code because NOS means not otherwise specified, which means the doctor didn't write down left or right in the note. So that's a dead giveaway. Do you see what I mean now? It's not the code, it's the fact that the doctor didn't document it properly. Okay? So you may just say, the patient has sciatica, but you may never write down left or right side. And now, if you just write it down without documenting left or right side, now an insurance company come back and says, oh, the patient said they have sciatica, you use this code here, but in reality you never documented it, so that's the problem. There is our issue. It's not the code, it is the documentation of the actual finding itself. Okay, so this is the first step when it comes into this. Okay, now the next step when this comes into this is also called encounters. Okay, and you're going to come into an A, D, or S. Okay, and I'll go to those in a few seconds, but that's going to end up in the 7th character position. Okay, these are new. This is the new thing about injury codes. So if you're doing any type of PI or injury codes, this is a big thing. Okay, now you may ask, well, John, can I, where can I get the book or where can I buy this stuff? The truth is, believe it or not, and Scott and I were just talking about this a few minutes ago, you don't need to buy the book. What if I told you you didn't have to buy access to a service? What if I took to look at the codes? What if I told you you didn't need to buy someone's website? You don't need to buy any of that stuff. What if I just told you you could get it for free? Go to your app store, either it's iTunes or Google Play, and look up Find a Code. Just find this. It is a free app that lets you search between the 9s and the 10s. It lets you go ahead and handle it back and forth. GEMS means General Equivalent Mappings. And you don't need anything else. This is exactly it. Plus, let's say you're using Platinum. You need to worry about the codes, right? I need to buy the website because they're going to give me the codes. No, Platinum already has the codes. They've already got the IC. You can call up now and they'll download the codes to you for your billing, right? Simple stuff. See how easy this is? You don't need to go out there and buy this different stuff from all these different, Cairo code and this and that. No, it's all it's all free. The government's already done all this work for us to give it to us for free. So to build the codes, to find the codes, it's real simple. Easy stuff, no big deal. So now let me show you how easy it is to use the system. Ready? Watch this. General equivalent mappings, right? It goes from 9 to 10. Okay. So if we look at 739.1, which is a very, very simple code, subluxation. If we look at the code itself, the GEM in the government's manual goes from 739 to M99.01. Okay, this number doesn't mean anything here. Okay, when you go look at this code, if you go put in M99.01 into find a code, there are no other numbers. This, believe it or not, is a one-to-one swap. So if you use 739s, 50% of your coding is already done because it's going to actually move 739.1 means M99.01. 79.2 is M99.02. 79.3 is M9.03, 04, and 05. These are one-for-one swaps. How simple is this? Everyone's trying to get you to freak out, and there's no need for it. It's stupid. Don't buy into the hype. This isn't Y2K, or actually, to some people, the way they're treating it, it is Y2K. Okay? So half your diagnosis coding is already completed. How simple? It's a one-for-one swap. Yay, done. So that being the case, if you're doing those, if you're handling Medicare type cases, your Medicare diagnosis codes are half done already. The only thing you got to figure out next is what are we going to do in PI and what we're going to do for the secondary case. Okay, so if you look at PI is a little different because there are a few different issues we need to handle it because PI, if we look at the same thing, they're going to look at 839, which is the code you would use to say that there's a traumatic subluxation. They're looking at the code S13101A. Now, once again, you can go ahead and put S3101A into the GEMS, into that, the find a code program. It'll tell you exactly what code comes back, actually converts it to. So you can actually look from the code used before to the code used now. So let me show you why you just don't want to use, in some cases, just the GEMS. You want to check them all. Okay, you could look at them in the gem, but you go to the most specific code. I'll show you why. So if you look at this page here, there's a couple of things we need to look at within the book itself. The first one is Excludes 1 and Excludes 2. Okay, Excludes 1 right here, right, means the code should never be used. That makes sense because if we're talking about 839 for traumatic subluxation, we would say here we wouldn't use non-traumatic and traumatic subluxation together. Doesn't make any sense. So that's why Excludes 1 means don't use it with it. Okay, Excludes 2, if we had traumatic subluxation and fracture, those two would go together. So these two go together. So Excludes 1 is bad, Excludes 2 doesn't go together. The good news is 99.99999% of this is all surgery and broken bones and other stuff that doesn't even apply to us. Okay, so if we go a little bit further, we see something else, which is this whole thing with ADRS. Okay, now A means initial encounter, D means subsequent encounter, and S means sequela. And it would make sense that in a traumatic issue that the insurance company is going to want to know, is this the initial encounter, is this a subsequent encounter, is it sequela? So when we look at this, you have to make sure you understand this is not about who sees the patient. It's not about you seeing the patient. This is all about the patient's experience. So if I'm looking at an 839 code that translates into S131, what I'm talking about here is I have to ask the patient, and this is where the stuff that Scott's teaching you is so important, okay? In your history, asking questions that are very, very specific about what happened to this patient, okay? Not just from a patient education standpoint, not from getting them to understand how serious their issue is, but because it's going to require you, the new codes are going to require you to have this information to choose ADRS correctly. Meaning, Mrs. Johnson, you were in a car accident. I'll go through the 3 versions. Have you seen anyone yet? Nope, I've never seen anyone for this car accident. Here we are. It happened yesterday. I'm here to see your office. Great. That would be coded as an initial encounter for that condition. Next one. Mrs. Johnson, have you seen anyone for this condition? Yes, I was just in the hospital earlier. They looked at all my, I had all these things worried, taking a look at all the conditions I have. Oh, okay, great, no problem. You were in a car accident. They looked at your condition at the ER, no problem. Now you would, even though you're the first person to see as a chiropractor, you would actually use D as subsequent encounter. And the next one, real simple, sequela, easy stuff. Sequela means that it's been a long time. So in your history, when you're talking to the patient, and Scott's giving you, examples on, making sure the patient understands that this problem's been with you a long time, but it's getting worse over time. That is sequela in and of itself. The accident happened 5 years ago, nothing really resolved, even though they may have gotten treatment, but it's still related, still brought on by the old injury. So all this stuff that Scott's been teaching you that you've been using for practice management truly is now coming to help you. And this is one of the few times that I'm able to actually say this from a practice management standpoint, where the person actually teaching the practice management is giving you the correct information about how to be able to do a history. Because this is one of the situations, if you're doing any type of injuries at all, this whole idea of AD or S is going to be a big thing when it comes down to the way you take your history, because you can't choose AD or S if you don't do a complete history. Okay, so when we look at the code itself, we're looking at S at 13101A is the code we were given to. If we look at the book, it says here 5th digit 1310. Okay, great. We go to the 6th digit, no problem. Unspecified, we don't want to use 1310. Why? Because unspecified, we want to say what level it is. Okay, so 13100 subluxation, unspecified cervical. So now we just can't say it's cervical region. They're actually going to want the specific region. So if it's S1312, that would be cervical C1, C2. 13 would be C2, C3. So that 101 doesn't quite work because it's unspecified. See that? So you got to make sure you go to the next level. So when you actually use the app, just put in S310 or S3.1, and they'll give you all the different options. You can look for the most detailed option. So you don't have to actually have the book. You can actually look at the app, and it gives you all the answers. Okay? So yes, I know it says dislocation here. We're not going to be using this one. This one is for dislocation. The S13120A for initial, D for subsequent, S for sequela. I know a lot of people don't like the definition of that, but that is the actual conversion over that Medicare gave us. And that's what we're going to deal with, okay? So in subluxation land, when we're dealing with a traumatic subluxation that we use in an injury or an accident for PI, that's the code we would use, okay? So as you can see, one of the differences here is they're looking for the specific level, which isn't that big of a deal because you're actually going to document this stuff anyway, okay? So as you can see, they're all there. And then we have different issues here. I'll show you some quick ones. If we come up with some X-ray findings, the 0 is unspecified when we look at the code. These are all site-specific. So some of the codes that are changing, there'll be cervical region, cervical thoracic. Some of them have multiple sites. Okay, down here we have multiple sites. That's a new thing also. Okay, so what we have to realize now is that yes, those are issues, but we have to really look at the connection. And this is the part where what Scott's been talking about as far as the history is so important, because we need to make sure that we get the connection right. So I wanted to bring this back to subluxation. I'm going to throw this real quick because I know Scott goes through this. But when we talk about part, I don't want to actually talk about part in and of itself. What I want to use is I know that part, pain asymmetry, range of motion, and tissue tonal change. What I want to do is I want to show you that when we look at this, it really should be complaint, posture, segmental motion, and swelling. Okay. Yes, we have the X-ray. We can use that if we want to. MR or CT will give it to us also. X-rays have an issue though. We don't have enough severity, enough detail. The issue is going to be this. Here's the big one. Codes are not chosen anymore. You can't use ICD-10 like you did ICD-9. ICD-9 was like going to an old Chinese restaurant when we were kids. I want one from list A, one from list B. I want a wonton soup and an egg roll. That's not how it is anymore. Okay. We actually have to prove the code right here. Prove the code. All right. And it's not done, and we have to say that it's done by exactly figuring out the test outcome. Now, here's the problem that we have, positive and negative. Our profession has the biggest issue with positive and negative. Here's the issue that we have. This is normally what I see. If this is the way you document now, you will fail at ICD-10. You will fail at ICD-10. Let me explain to you why. If I just look at the lumbar disc disorder button right here, or code, you'll see here, if I just say positive SLR and I circle this right here, great, no problem. I could do that. The only problem is I can't pick a code. I'd have to use this one. But I can't, it requires a 5th digit. So I come over here. If I don't say in my note where it's at, then I can't pick the correct code. That's the problem we're going to have. That's the issue. It's not about actually picking the code to bill. This is the issue. So when we look at this, we have to make sure that we say exactly what the diagnosis is. So if we go back and look at this, we could say part, this is how it works, lumbago, low back pain, no problem. Posture, we have this code, and we have spasm that converts right over. All these are simple one-for-one swaps. It's no big deal. So even part is no big deal. The only issue you can come up with is not even with this. It's here. I mean, even the stiffness of joint, global range of motion. the 719.58 is still at M25.60, and here's the reason why these codes are going to change. And be careful, because if you buy a system now, if you buy a conversion system, here's the part that you got to remember. You see how this says NOS? This is big. NOS means not otherwise specified. That means that when I look at the M25 code, okay, and I look at spinal loss of flexibility, spine is not one of the regions. Okay, October 1st, 2016, there will be a major increase in the number of codes we use because there's been a lot of oversights like this one. Here's the thing you have to remember. Whatever system you buy, those gems, those apps, the government's only producing them once right now. They will not be edited. So if you have them now, that's great. Use them now. Understand that when October 1st rolls around, you need to make sure that you are aware of what codes have changed or been added, because your old system will not be the same come October 1st, 2016. Okay? So you need to make sure that you transition from 9 to 10, and this is how it works. This is my suggestion. Take your list that you use now, go into the app, create a conversion. Go through all your different situations, and I just gave you 4 examples here on how to do it. Look at my neck pain, no problem, create a conversion. Look at what you're billing right now, create a conversion over. No big deal, real simple stuff. Go back in and create a conversion. Now, here's the thing. The conversion is going to be real easy. It'll take you 20 minutes to do a conversion of the codes you normally use. Here's the rub. The rub you have, it's not about the code. Guys, you got to remember it's not about the code. See, here's the ICD-10 code, but yet when we know what the 9s are, what you have to understand is that it's not about moving from 9 to 10 or 10 to 9. It's actually about understanding this right here. This exam finding is where the issue is going to be a problem. That's the part that we don't understand. That's the part that most people don't get correctly. This is the part where the government's going to come back to you and say, hey, listen, I want to see this documentation. If you don't have this information correct, you're going to be in trouble. And I know, Scott, we only had like about 25, 30 minutes. I don't want to take up any more of your time. This is what we need to make sure that we get down no matter what, is that this information right here is the most important part. It's taken us, and let me give you some time frames here. It's taken us pretty close to, I want to say, 16 months to actually write the 9 codes to match the diagnosis to also match the 10. So it's taken us 9 months so far to create all the codes and convert them and then go back in and write all the exam findings so we can put them in our system. That's the part that you have to go ahead and convert. That's the part that's the most important. If you're not writing down all the correct diagnosis code findings now, that's where you're going to have to actually go back in and see exactly what it is that you actually pick up as far as the diagnosis. That's the problem we're going to have to figure out. Okay? That's the part we have documentation to handle. So what I want you to do is this. I'm going to take you through just real quick. I'm going to show you one more thing. It's all about this. This is what it's about. It's about certainty in Disney. I know I promised I wouldn't go over. I apologize.
You're fine, Dr. John. Just keep going. You're good.
Okay, cool. I want to go over certainty. It's about certainty in Disney. This is really what it's about. I want to talk to you real quick about this is my daughter when she was 10. She had been to Disney 9 times when she was 10. The girl at the front gate went to put a sticker and say, "Welcome to your first trip to Disney." She looked at her and said, "Excuse me, but I've been here 9 times already." She's that type of person. But see, the key here about certainty in Disney is the same thing when it comes down to what you do with ICD-9 versus ICD-10. When she ran through the gate, she looked at me and she said one word the entire time running down Main Street USA. She screamed, "Dumbo, Dumbo, Dumbo." And I had to chase her with my son in my hands, hoping I didn't fall down. Now, the reason why I was chasing her because she knew exactly where she wanted to go. She actually beat the employees to Dumbo before they opened. Now, compare that to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. They might find Dumbo. It might take them hours. That's the entire idea right now. I want you to understand that this is all about keeping up your practice, keeping it going. I don't want you to forget about what's going on today. I don't want you to think of, to worry about what's going to happen going in the future. I want you to think about how do you keep your practice? How do you keep what you do so graceful. The key to that is the Lodi monster. Okay, the Lodi monster is the law of diminishing intent. Do not let this issue right now say, I have time. Do not say I have till October. Don't do it. Because I guarantee you this, if it's taken us 9 months to do this, it'll take you a little bit longer, because not only have we done this, we actually had all of our findings reviewed by somebody who's written a chiropractic textbook on exam. So we know that all our connections are correct. This information that we're giving you now, I want you to act on it. I want you to do something, okay? I need you to do something, because if not, what's going to happen is this. You're going to be able to bill come October 1st, and even if you pick the right codes, if they ask you for records, that's when you're going to be sunk, and I don't want that to happen. I want you to understand the connection is key. Do not forget this day. Do not forget about it. So here's what the solution is for you. The solution is we've actually done all the work. Scott uses them right now. He is floating through his notes. His ICD-9 is actually included in all of his macros. His ICD-10 will be updated for him come October. He actually has all access to all this stuff. These are the systems that we use. We have 14 different systems. There's a couple on here we didn't even get a chance to add in here yet. But all of these we have access to. All of these we fix. All of these we work on, okay? So the reason why I'm saying this to you is because forgetting about it today, this is the Lodi monster. Do not let this happen to you, please. I beg of you, do not let this end in such a way in which you go, yeah, I'll deal with it later, and then call someone on September 30th and go, John, what do I do? Or Scott, what do I do? No, that's not what this is about. Don't let this happen to you, because it'll be here right away. And next thing you know, you're going to want to go on vacation. You're going to want to go to Disney. You're going to want to go to the beach. Like Scott's talking about, you want to go surfing. You want to do all these different things, but you're not going to be able to, because you won't have spent the time in addition that you need to be able to make your macros work. So that being said, if you want to see how your ICD-10 system works, or how our ICD-10 system works with your macros, let us know with your system. We have access to that. In fact, if you email us today and you want to see them, I'll give you $500 off our program. If you've never worked with us, I'll give you $500 off our program today. If you email us and just put $500 in the subject line, I'll let you see it. Now, if you already have our system, I know a number of Scott's clients actually have our system. What I'm willing to do is this. If you email us and you're a current client, I'll give you whatever you paid in the past, I'll give you full credit towards our new system, which makes some of you will only have, will pay pennies compared to what others. So this is what I'm willing to do for Scott's clients. I know I'm going to be out there in October. Please do me a favor. Don't wait until I get out there in October. It'll be too late. So do something today. Even if it's not with me, I'm cool with it. I'm fine with it. But what I want you to do is understand the law of diminishing intent means if you don't do something about fixing your ICD-10 today, you'll be stuck come the end of the month, or come the end of September, and it will hit you. It'll be really, really quick, and I don't want to see anyone go down the tubes on that one. All right? Scott, do you have any questions?
Well, boy, I have a lot of questions, but I first of all, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate your your attention to detail. You're putting this on the lower shelf for us, so we can easily grab it and plug it in. And obviously, as always, I love the work you do for me, for my clients. Just so. Anyways, thank you so much for that. I do have one question, because in terms of getting the exam and consultation results tied over to this, you mentioned X-rays quickly. Are we going to be tying in X-ray findings into that diagnosis, into one of those 7 parts, or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because your X-ray reports will have to not just say I see Forstier's, or I see or I see DJD. They're going to want to know where you're seeing it.
Yep. Okay.
So you're gonna want to say that specifically, which is important, because the way you do your reports, you're tying the specific functional loss over to the problem that's there anyway. So once again, guys, if you're listening, Scott's already teaching this stuff. Now, it's one thing to say it to the patient. It's another thing to ask the patient something. It's another thing to actually write it down. And that's the part that some people miss. And I want them to make sure they write down everything, because it's going to prove every little piece of it.
Fantastic. So and I know this is kind of saying what you just said in a little different way, but just like what I teach, which is specificity of the chiropractic adjustment, and that's what BJ and Dee intended us to do all these years, is to be specific with our chiropractic adjustment. Now our exam findings aren't going to just be generalized to a region of the spine. They're actually going to be specific to where the subluxation is, and they're pertaining to that through the diagnosis. So it actually ties right in with what we want to do as chiropractors, which is to be more specific anyways.
Mm-hmm. It is going to be that, and your history.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I'll give you a great example. There's one example that I used before that I want people just to real quick to see. Think about, you know, sprain strain. In the past, you would say patient was a car accident, patient has sprain strain due to whiplash. Okay, most of your PI cases probably look like that, and no one's ever said a word to you about it. Today, that's fine in ICD-9 land. In ICD-10 land, that's not going to be the case. ICD-10 actually turns from sprain strain into separating sprain and strain. Once it's separated, now I have to say sprain, okay, fine, no problem. Pain upon passive range of motion, proving ligamentous laxity. Strain, pain upon active range of motion, proving a muscle injury. So now I actually have to write down what those injuries are, because if I just write down whiplash, that doesn't actually prove the code anymore. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes down to those specific things, which is the reason why within our macros you could actually not change, you could increase your flow. And look, I mean, you could look at Scott's flow. I mean, Scott's flow, to see the volume he has, is just, you know, it's perfect, it's easy, and he has all his diagnosis codes already in the notes without having to choose them, because we built it that way in his system. If you want that amount of flow, that's fine. Imagine taking all the stuff from, I don't know, it doesn't matter who you buy it from. I don't care what system you buy it from or who you buy it from. You're going to have to take that information, learn the code, then you're going to have to learn the actual exam finding, then you're going to have to write it up into a macro, then you're going to have to kind of shoehorn it into what your process is now. And what I asked you at the very beginning was, I don't want this to change your flow. If you don't do it correctly, you're actually going to slow yourself down trying to meet ICD-10, which makes no sense. Compliance shouldn't make you slower, it should make you faster.
I love it. Okay. And so then not so much a question, but just a comment. You're actually going to be out here in July, not October. So
July?
It's July, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it is on July 18th. So
there you go. I'll be there July 18th.
I'm sorry. No. I'm getting it mixed up. I'm looking at I'm trying to multitask, which is not a good thing for me, especially when I just got done surfing. So no, it's not July. It is September, not October.
September
Yes.
18th.
Sorry. I will tell you the exact date right now. That's what I was trying to multitask with. September 19th. So it'll be Module 5, September 19th. Dr. John Davila is going to be with us at the seminar. And so that's actually where I was going to sort of wrap up this call today, is that I want all of you to take what you've learned today. And one of the beautiful things about DC trainings, as you know, is I record these webinars and they're posted on the website. So you can listen to this 1,000 times with your team to dial it in. There was so much information today, and get this in place. And then come September, we're going to put the icing on the cake at the seminar with Dr. Davila, and it'll actually give us time to make any last minute changes that we need to make right before this comes out in the next following month. So
yeah, because we'll get a chance to play with the app and everything else too. Yeah,
exactly. So we're gonna have this totally dialed in. Just stick with me, follow through it step by step, and then we'll get this taken care of. So just a couple of the things that John and I are aware of is these main points. And if you want to add to this afterwards, Dr. John, I'd love to get your feedback. But what I took away from this is we want to make sure that we use the app to convert our codes. So get the app, and that's the Find a Code downloadable app. And then documentation, which I've actually worked with all of you on, the documentation during the consultation, getting your findings precise, being precise with your evaluation, where the subluxations are, identifying the levels, comparing your exam to those levels of subluxation. And then, so that's number 2. Number 3 is role play with your team. Please, as I talk to you all the time about this, and CAs, you're going to be empowered with this. You'll know exactly what questions to ask in the consultation to determine this information that's going to tie right over when the doctor does the diagnosis, to make sure that it's just perfect and all the codes are in place. So those are the 3 things. Download the app to convert the codes, documentation during your exam and consultations, and then role play with your team, because as I said, Dr. John and I are very aware of these details. we're putting these changes out there for you well ahead of time so you can have it totally dialed in. And as he started out with, you get to sleep good, you get to rest easy, you can walk into work with a smile on your face, there's no panic, there's no rush, and we are dialed in, ready to go.
Take a vacation this summer.
That's right, and we get to go surfing in Fiji. So,
There you go.
all right. So go ahead and please, as a final point, most important of all, right on the screen right now, you see the information. Contact Dr. John. Get this stuff dialed in. Last year, many of you remember, I was talking to you about custom Cairo creations, or is it creations with the advertising?
Oh no, the compliant coupons.
Or compliant coupons. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yes, the compliance coupons. I was talking to you about that last year, and really that has been just seamless for us. We've got all of our compliant advertising in place. This year, it's your ICD-10. So go to or take him up on the custom Cairo solutions. I don't get any kickbacks for saying this or anything, so I just want to put that out there. This is me telling you from my heart, get yourself in the right position. Email them, get this downloaded, be ready to go for ICD-10, and you'll be sleeping good.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate it.
You got it, Scott. Good to see you in September.
That's right. All right. And yes, we will see you then. And yeah, we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
You got it. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. So now we have a couple minutes left, so don't go anywhere. But again, I really appreciate him being on the call. I'm going to switch back over to my screen and hold on just a second, because there we go. I have to just push a button here real quick. There it is. It should be popping up right there. Perfect. And I want to give you time for a couple questions. And again, Dr. Davila will be with us in September. So plan ahead, write down your questions, get ready for it. We're going to have a great day in September, as well as talking about lifetime care and really dialing in the whole ongoing process for patients to keep patients motivated and boost your retention. That'll be our topic in September for the seminar. But I have a couple of really good questions. One of which was, I want to answer these. Actually, I had a lot of emails this week, so I know a lot of you are very busy in your practices, which I love to see. I want to say thank you for sending in your stats. Many of you have been sending those in to the email at it's dctrainings@gmail.com, so keep sending those in. That's great. We've got our ongoing challenge towards the next seminar, which is in just a couple of weeks, July 18th, Report of Findings 2, where you're going to get everything you need to know about arranging financial arrangements. If you want to boost your income in your practice, have long-term retention with your patients, and have them basically create an ongoing payment stream into your practice that's just automated. That's what we're going to be talking about at this seminar on July 18th. So RSVP your seats, make sure that's dialed in. So we know, and actually, as I say this, next week is our 2-week cutoff for us to print the materials for you. So I need you to go onto the website, RSVP your seats, let us know you're coming, let us know who's coming with you on the seminar, on the seminars page in the website. So please let us know, bring your team, get this dialed in. I'll tell you, I have 4 CAs that can all do reports of findings, and they're all trained, all dialed in, and all 4 of them can do this. And what does that do? That is, I mean, like yesterday, we had 6 reports of findings, we had 10 new patients yesterday, and we had over 150 visits. And we're smooth sailing through the day. How do you do that? You have a well-trained, dynamic team that knows exactly how to dial this stuff in. So, so bring your team. Have them be able to work with the financial arrangements with the patients so that they're comfortable and they're confident and they can work through the numbers and get this ironed out for you in your practice. Okay, so please RSVP for the seminar. First question was from Rohani, and I sent you the audio pin so I could unmute your line, but you had a question here. If a new patient comes into their initial appointment, decides on that same appointment they'll not be returning after the doctor's exam, would that be considered an ROF appointment as well and should be added to the weekly stats? The answer is no. That would not be a report of findings appointment because the report of findings stat on the goals tracking system tracks the report of findings arrivals. So if that person came in as a new patient and then left and didn't ever come back, they would count as a new patient, but on the arrival side where the report of findings is, that would be a 0. And if you're having a lot of that, which I have helped many practices with that challenge or that subluxation, where they have new patients flooding in, and then a large percent of those new patients are not coming back for the report of findings. And there's three big points that cause that subluxation. One is, well, I can go into those in more detail, but one of them is if you're charging too much on your first visit. Number two is if you're not getting the primary concerns detailed out. And number three is if it takes too long, if things are too drawn out. So those are the big three. But anyways, so the answer would be no on that. And then there was another question. If a patient comes in for a day one re-exam and the next appointment, the doctor decides to do an X-ray based on, I guess, the results of the re-exam, should we postpone the day two until the next appointment so the doctor can go over both the day two and the X-ray at the same time? And the answer is yes. So you would, obviously, if there's an exam finding that warrants an X-ray, that's going to delay the second part of that, where the appointment, where the doctor goes over the results of the exam. That's going to delay that out for a day, and that's no problem. Just let the patient know, based on these findings, we're going to need to extend this out a little bit so that the doctor has time to review the findings, and then we can go from there. I'm sorry, then we'll go over the results at that next time. And I'm going through these questions here. That was a good one. I see a question from Dr. Delbeni about financial plans. And I think probably the best thing would be, Dr. Delbeni, if you want to raise your hand, I'd be happy to unmute your line because you had a question about the credit card charges. So I can answer that if you want to. There you go. I see your hand going up. Okay, so go ahead, Dr. Delbeni. Welcome to the call.
Hi. So in regards to credit card charges, we will have somebody sign up for a plan, and then some people will pay cash. I mean, like a check or something like that. But if they sign up for a plan and they use a credit card, sometimes we're hit with really high credit card fees. We can pay, $200 to $500 in just credit card fees for a plan.
For one plan?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, we have seen, we've changed credit card companies so far since then, but.
Well, that seems very high. What I would suggest that you do, because it sounds like that seems unreasonably high. I don't know which company you're using, but if you can write this down, you want to call or you want to go get a hold of iTransact. And this is it's a merchant company I've been using for years. They're on the East Coast. They're very competitive. And actually, there's a website they have. It's Easy Care Plans, spelled EZ and then Care Plans .itransact.com. You can go to that website. And then if you don't see that, you can actually just go straight to the iTransact website. But there's a person there that knows my account information, and I'm trying to pull up her number right now. And her name is Tammy, and I want you to call her. I'm going to give you her number here. But what they'll do while I'm pulling this up is they'll do basically a reconciliation of your processing fees and let you know if they're unreasonable. So her number is 801-951-8144, 801-951-8144, and her name is Tammy Nguyen, which is Nguyen. So if you call her, just tell her you're a member of DC Trainings, you're interested in having them evaluate your processing fees, and they'll take it from there.
I did not get the number. I'm so sorry.
Okay, one more time. It's 801-951-8144.
So we have ChiroTouch. Thank you. We have ChiroTouch, and we were recommended to go to a certain company that integrates to ChiroTouch. So we were supposed to get a better rate, but it's really not any better than the previous one. Dr. Kimes has actually recommended to us. So I'm not sure, but I'll call Tammy. Hopefully they can integrate and do direct.
Well, they're great for us. And do you use the Platinum system?
No, I'm on ChiroTouch.
Oh, okay. So I know how well they work with Platinum, so that's why we use them. But you can give her a call. Just the thing is that iTransact will do a cross check of the fees that you're paying, and they'll let you know if they're unreasonably high. They sound pretty high to me, but they'll check it out, and then they'll just let you know And that'll give you a basis for whether you should go back to your current company and negotiate, or if you just want to make some kind of a switch.
Okay. The other question I had was, do you pass that on to the patient? I know a dentist that he passes that on to the patient. They charge 4%. If they'll give a cash rated discount for people, that if they're going to use credit card, they'll say, okay, instead of a 15% discount, now you have 11% discount because we charge 4% for.
So what you want to do is you want to factor that into the price of your fees. So I wouldn't actually quote unquote pass that on to the patient, but I would adjust, like where you take your average charge at the top of the corrective care worksheet, whatever that number is. I think it was like $100 on my sample, and then I dropped it to 50%, which dropped it down to 50. So in that calculation, rather than dropping it to 50%, you may say, well, if they're going to do ongoing monthly payments, instead of dropping it by 50%, I'm going to drop it by 46%, and that 45%, and that 5% is going to equate to what we pay the credit card company. So you're not directly passing it on to the patient, but you're just reducing the discount a little bit to allow you to still remain profitable.
So how do you say that to the patient, though? I mean, is it
I,
just
I wouldn't even say it to the patient. I would just say, our normal charge is $100, and guess what?
I think I just, there we go. Hold on just a second.
style, right? Hello? Can you hear us?